The serum worked, but not perfectly. Subin had warned them that the fungus was unpredictable, and her fears proved true. While the initial application slowed the spread of the infection, the spores began mutating again within days. The Veilans, scientists confirmed what everyone dreaded. The fungus was adapting to the serum faster than expected. It wasn't just surviving, it was evolving into something stronger, more resilient. Subin spent sleepless nights in the lab, tweaking the formula and running tests. But each new iteration seemed only marginally better than the last. Her frustration grew with every failed attempt. "It's like we're chasing a ghost," she muttered one evening, staring at the glowing vials on her workstation. "Every time we think we've got it, it changes." Hae-ryong stood nearby, his arms crossed as he watched her work. He wanted to offer words of encouragement, but he knew they would sound hollow. Instead, he focused on practical solutions. "What do you need?" he asked finally. "More samples? More hands?" "I don't know," Subin admitted, rubbing her temples. "Maybe both, or maybe nothing will help. This thing is relentless." Despite the setbacks, Hae-ryong refused to let despair take hold. "We'll figure it out," he said firmly. "We have to." Meanwhile, tensions among the Veilans began to rise. Taryn, Kale's second-in-command, had never fully trusted the humans, and their struggle against the fungus only fueled her skepticism. She gathered a small group of dissenters, spreading whispers of doubt among the Veilan workers. "They promised us salvation," she hissed during a meeting in the shadows of the settlement. "But all they've brought is failure. How much longer are we supposed to follow these outsiders?" Her followers nodded in agreement, their frustration palpable. Supplies were dwindling, morale was low, and fear gnawed at everyone's resolve. Even those who still believed in the Deathworlders' mission couldn't ignore the growing sense of hopelessness. Kale tried to quell the unrest, addressing his people in open forums and urging them to remain united. "We cannot give up now," he said, his voice steady despite the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. "The humans are doing everything they can. If we turn on them now, we doom ourselves." But Taryn wasn't satisfied. She saw an opportunity to seize control, to push for a solution that didn't rely on outsiders. Under the cover of darkness, she led her followers to confront Kale directly. "You've put too much faith in them," Taryn shouted, stepping forward with anger blazing in her eyes. "They're wasting our resources and risking our lives. It's time we took matters into our own hands." Kale stood tall, unflinching in the face of her accusations. "And what would you have us do, Taryn? Abandon the plan and let the fungus consume us entirely? Would that be better?" "It's better than waiting for strangers to save us," Taryn snapped back. Before Kale could respond, one of her followers lunged forward, attempting to disarm him. Chaos erupted as others joined the fray, shouting and shoving. Hae-ryong heard the commotion from his position near the lab and rushed to intervene. When he arrived, the scene was chaotic. Veilans clashed with one another, their exoskeletons clattering loudly as fists flew. Without hesitation, Hae-ryong stepped between them, raising his hands to signal a halt. "Enough!" he bellowed, his voice cutting through the noise. "Fighting each other won't solve anything. If you want to survive, you need to work together, not tear yourselves apart." Taryn glared at him, her mandibles clicking furiously. "Stay out of this, human. This is our problem, not yours." "It becomes my problem when your division puts everyone at risk," Hae-ryong shot back. "If you don't trust me or my team, fine. But ask yourself this. Will your rebellion save your people, or will it destroy what little chance we have left?" His words struck a nerve. Slowly, the fighting subsided as the Veilans stepped back, their expressions conflicted. Kale seized the moment, addressing the crowd once more. "Listen to him," he urged. "He's right. We cannot afford to fight amongst ourselves. Our survival depends on unity." For a tense moment, no one moved. Then, one by one, the dissenters lowered their weapons, though their scowls remained. Taryn hesitated, her pride warring with reason. Finally, she turned away, muttering under her breath as she stalked off into the night. Though the uprising was quelled, its effects lingered. Trust between the Veilans and the Deathworlders had been shaken, and morale hit an all-time low. Exhaustion weighed heavily on everyone, sapping their strength and resolve. Supplies dwindled further, forcing rationing measures that left many hungry and irritable. The constant threat of the fungus loomed over them like a storm cloud, dark and suffocating. Subin continued her work tirelessly, driven by guilt and determination. Each failure felt personal, as if she had let Daejin's sacrifice go to waste. Yet she refused to give up. Late one night, as Hei Ryong entered the lab to check on her, he found her hunched over a microscope, her hands trembling slightly. "How? Are you holding up?" he asked gently. She looked up, her eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. "I'm trying," she said softly, "but I feel like I'm losing. Every time I think I'm close, the fungus slips away again." Hei Ryong knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You're not alone in this. None of us are. We'll keep going until we find a way." "That's what Daejin would have wanted." Subin nodded, blinking back tears. "I just wish he were here." "So do I," Hei Ryong admitted. "But his sacrifice means something. It reminds us why we're fighting. For him, for the Vaylans, for everyone counting on us." The reminder gave her renewed focus. Over the next few days, Subin pushed harder than ever, pouring every ounce of energy into refining the serum. With Hei Ryong's help, she conducted field tests, applying the latest version to isolated patches of fungus. To their relief, the results showed promise. The mutated spores reacted more slowly, giving them precious time to act. Encouraged by the progress, the team devised a bold plan. Using the remaining drones and dispersal units, they would launch a coordinated assault on the largest infected zones, saturating the area with the improved serum, while simultaneously igniting controlled burns to seal off the region. It was risky. Any misstep could allow the fungus to break through, but it was their best chance. Preparations took days, with everyone pitching in to ensure the operation went smoothly. Valen workers loaded supplies onto transport vehicles, while Deathworlders calibrated equipment and mapped out routes. Hei Ryong supervised the effort, ensuring that every detail was accounted for. Despite the tension that still lingered, there was a sense of purpose in the air, a shared understanding that this might be their final stand. On the morning of the operation, the team gathered at the edge of the infected zone. The landscape before them was bleak. Blackened soil stretched endlessly, dotted with patches of glowing fungus that pulsed faintly, almost mockingly. The air smelled of decay, heavy and oppressive. Kale approached Hei Ryong, his expression solemn. "This is it," he said. "Whatever happens today, thank you for standing with us." Hei Ryong nodded, gripping Kale's forearm in a gesture of solidarity. "We'll get through this, together." With that, the operation began. Drones soared overhead, spraying the serum across the infected areas, while ground teams ignited fires to create barriers. Flames roared to life, consuming the fungus and sealing off sections of the zone. The air grew thick with smoke, making it hard to breathe, but no one faltered. Hours passed in a blur of heat, ash, and determination. Progress was slow but steady, the combined efforts of humans and Vaylans pushing back against the relentless tide of infection. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the battlefield in shades of orange and red, the team regrouped to assess their success. "It's working," Subin said, her voice filled with cautious optimism. "The fungus isn't spreading beyond the fire breaks." Hei Ryong allowed himself a small smile, though exhausted. The sun that had once shone brightly over the planet Zitharian now flickered like a dying flame. Its golden rays, which for centuries had warmed the lush fields and towering cities of the Caliph. People were fading into darkness. The air smelled strange, thicker, heavier, as if the very atmosphere was collapsing under an invisible weight. In the streets of their capital city, once bustling with life, silence reigned. People moved quickly, their faces pale with fear, clutching whatever belongings they could carry. The end was near. Kale stood atop a crumbling observation tower at the edge of the city, his sharp eyes scanning the horizon. He was tall, even by Caliph standards, with deep blue skin marked by faint glowing patterns that pulsed softly in tune with his emotions. His long cloak fluttered against the harsh winds, whipping Thrustion, etched deep lines into his face. "We did it," For now, at least. Kyle stepped forward, his multifaceted eyes reflecting gratitude. You've given us a chance. A real chance. And for that, we owe you everything. The victory was bittersweet. They had bought time, but the cost had been immense. Dae-Jin's life, countless hours of labor, and the fragile trust between two species hanging by a thread. Yet amidst the devastation, there was hope. Hope that cooperation could overcome even the direst challenges. Hope that survival wasn't just about enduring hardship, but about finding strength in unity. As the flames burned brightly in the distance, He Ryong gazed at the horizon, knowing the fight was far from over. The forest near Mount Jiri was quiet that evening, the kind of stillness that came just before dawn. Birds chirped softly in the distance, and a cool breeze rustled through the trees. Jinho tightened his grip on the flashlight as he led the way, his younger sister Hye-Jin close behind him. The strange lights they had seen descending from the sky were now gone, but the memory of them lingered like an unanswered question tugging at their minds. "We should go back," Hye-Jin said, her voice barely above a whisper. She glanced over her shoulder nervously as if expecting something or someone to emerge from the shadows. "What if it's dangerous?" Jinho hesitated for a moment, then shook his head. "We can't just ignore it. Whatever it is, it landed nearby. If it's something bad, we need to know." Hye-Jin sighed but didn't argue further. She trusted her brother, even if his stubborn curiosity sometimes worried her. Growing up in a small farming village surrounded by mountains had taught both of them to be cautious. Yet Jinho always seemed drawn to mysteries others would rather avoid. As they ventured deeper into the woods, the air grew colder, and the ground beneath their feet became uneven. Broken branches littered the path. Some snapped cleanly as though crushed under immense weight. Jinho stopped suddenly, shining the flashlight ahead. There, partially hidden by fallen leaves and twisted roots, was a large metallic object, smooth, sleek, and unlike anything they had ever seen. "It's a ship?" Hye-Jin whispered, stepping closer despite her earlier hesitation. Her eyes widened as she took in its design. It wasn't made of ordinary metal. It shimmered faintly, almost alive, with intricate patterns etched across its surface. A low hum vibrated through the air, making her skin prickle. Before either of them could say more, movement caught Jinho's attention. 3 figures emerged from the shadows around the ship, their forms tall and slender, with skin that glowed faintly blue. Their wide, almond-shaped eyes scanned the area cautiously, and their movements were deliberate, measured. They wore sleek suits that seemed to blend seamlessly with their bodies, and their hands, long-fingered and delicate, rested lightly on devices strapped to their hips. For a moment, no one moved. Jinho raised the flashlight higher, illuminating the strangers fully. One of them, a female with sharp features and glowing markings along her arms, stepped forward slowly, raising a hand in what appeared to be a gesture of peace. But the language she spoke was incomprehensible, a series of melodic tones that sounded nothing like Korean or any human tongue. "Who are you?" Jinho asked, lowering the flashlight slightly. His voice trembled, but he forced himself to stay calm. "What do you want?" The aliens exchanged quick glances, their expressions unreadable. Then another figure, a male with broad shoulders and glowing patterns that pulsed brighter when he moved, spoke again, this time pointing to the ship and miming gestures as if trying to explain something. Hye-Jin tilted her head, watching intently. "They're not attacking us," she murmured to Jinho. "Maybe they're lost." Jinho frowned. "Or maybe they're looking for something." The tension between the two groups hung thick in the air. Neither side understood the other, and the lack of communication only heightened the unease. Just as Hye-Jin began searching for pen and paper in her bag, hoping to find some way to bridge the gap, a loud crack echoed through the forest. Startled, everyone turned toward the sound. A 4th alien had stepped out from behind the ship, carrying what looked like a weapon. Unlike the others, his posture was aggressive, his glowing patterns flickering erratically. He barked something sharply, and the other 3 immediately stepped back, leaving him alone in front of Jinho and Hye-Jin. "What's happening?" Hye-Jin whispered, clutching Jinho's arm tightly. "I don't know," Jinho replied, his voice tight. He held up both hands, palms out, trying to show he meant no harm. Stay calm. But the aggressive alien didn't seem interested in calm. With a sudden movement, he raised his weapon, aiming it directly at Jin-Ho. Before anyone could react, a bright beam shot out, narrowly missing Jin-Ho's head and striking a tree behind him. The impact sent splinters flying, and He-Jin screamed, ducking instinctively. Panic erupted. The peaceful aliens shouted in alarm, gesturing frantically at their aggressive companion. Jin-Ho grabbed He-Jin's hand and pulled her back, retreating into the safety of the trees. The aggressive alien fired again, but this time, one of the others intervened, shoving his arm downward so the shot missed entirely. "Stop!" the female alien cried, her voice rising above the chaos. Though her words were still unintelligible, her tone conveyed urgency and desperation. She turned to face Jin-Ho and He-Jin, bowing deeply as if apologizing. Then she pointed to the sky and mimed lifting off, as if trying to convey that they weren't staying. Jin-Ho hesitated, his heart pounding. Part of him wanted to run, to get as far away from these strangers as possible. But another part, the same part that had driven him to investigate the crash site in the first place, told him there was more to this situation than met the eye. These creatures weren't invaders, at least not all of them. Some clearly wanted peace. "Let's go," he said finally, pulling He-Jin further into the trees. "We'll come back later with help. Maybe someone who speaks their language." He-Jin nodded, though her legs felt like jelly as they hurried away. Behind them, the aliens remained near their ship, arguing heatedly among themselves. The aggressive one eventually lowered his weapon, though his glowing patterns continued to pulse angrily. The female placed a calming hand on his shoulder, speaking softly, until he finally relented. Back in the village, news of the encounter spread quickly. By morning, half the town had gathered outside Jin-Ho and He-Jin's modest home, eager for details. Word traveled fast in such a small community, and soon reporters arrived, followed by government officials and military personnel. Helicopters circled overhead, scanning the forest for signs of the mysterious visitors. Ha-Jin found herself thrust into the spotlight, recounting the events of the previous night to anyone who would listen. As a researcher at a nearby facility, specializing in linguistics, she was uniquely qualified to analyze the aliens' behavior and attempt communication. Despite her fear, she agreed to assist the authorities, knowing that understanding was key to preventing further conflict. Meanwhile, Jin-Ho focused on organizing volunteers to monitor the crash site. Farmers, shopkeepers, and even local hunters joined forces determined to protect their land while gathering information about the strangers. Armed with binoculars, cameras, and basic recording equipment, they set up observation posts around the perimeter of the forest. Over the next few days, tensions escalated. The aliens rarely ventured far from their ship, though they occasionally emerged to collect samples or repair damage caused by the crash. Each interaction with humans was fraught with misunderstanding. Simple gestures, like offering food or water, were misinterpreted as threats, leading to several tense standoffs. In one instance, a villager accidentally startled an alien scout, causing it to activate its weapon defensively. No one was hurt, but the incident fueled fears that the visitors were hostile. News outlets dubbed the event the alien invasion, sensationalizing every detail for dramatic effect. Social media exploded with speculation, ranging from conspiracy theories about secret experiments to wild claims of extraterrestrial warfare. Anti-alien sentiment grew, particularly among those living outside the immediate area who hadn't witnessed the aliens' attempts at peaceful communication. Despite the growing hostility, He-Jin refused to give up hope. Working tirelessly in her makeshift lab, she analyzed recordings of the aliens' speech patterns, searching for similarities to known languages. To her surprise, she discovered recurring sounds that resembled certain tonal dialects used in ancient Korean texts. Using this as a starting point, she created a rudimentary translation system, pairing basic phrases with corresponding gestures. Her breakthrough came during a tense meeting arranged by local leaders. Under heavy guard, representatives from both sides gathered near the crash site. He-Jin approached cautiously, holding up a tablet displaying her translations. When she spoke, slowly and deliberately, the aliens listened intently, their glowing patterns dimming slightly as if intrigued. After several minutes of careful exchange, one of the aliens, a tall male with steady, intelligent eyes, nodded slowly. He touched his chest and said a single word. "Kyle," Hyejin repeated it, pointing to him. "Kyle." He nodded again, smiling faintly. Then he pointed to her and waited. "Hyejin," she said, tapping her own chest. "Hyejin," Kyle repeated, his pronunciation awkward but clear. A ripple of excitement passed through the group. For the first time since their arrival, true communication had been established. As the sun set over Mount Jiri, casting long shadows across the forest, a fragile bond began to form between two vastly different species. Though challenges lay ahead, the seeds of understanding had been planted. And in that moment, hope flickered to life once more. The fragile bond between humans and the Kalith was like a thin thread, stretched taut by fear and misunderstanding. Despite Hyejin's breakthrough with Kale, tensions remained high. Every interaction carried the risk of escalation, every gesture open to misinterpretation. The villagers near Mount Jiri watched the aliens warily, their curiosity mingled with suspicion. Meanwhile, governments around the world debated how to handle the situation, their decisions swayed by public opinion and political agendas. Hyejin spent long hours working on improving communication with Kale and his companions. Using her rudimentary translation system, she taught them basic Korean phrases while learning snippets of their language in return. Progress was slow but steady. Words like food, water, and safe became anchors in their conversations, helping bridge the gap between their worlds. Yet, even as understanding grew, trust proved harder to build. Kyle, for his part, seemed genuinely interested in fostering peace. His calm demeanor and patient approach earned him cautious respect among the villagers. He often accompanied Hyejin during exchanges, acting as a mediator between his people and the humans. But not all the Kalith shared his outlook. Vane, the aggressive warrior who had fired upon Jinho and Hyejin during their first encounter, remained deeply distrustful of humanity. His glowing patterns flared angrily whenever he saw humans approaching, and his sharp words, though unintelligible to most, carried an unmistakable tone of hostility. One afternoon, as Hyejin worked, with Kale near the crash site, Vane approached unexpectedly. His posture was rigid, his weapon slung prominently across his chest. He spoke rapidly to Kale, gesturing emphatically toward the nearby village. Though Hyejin couldn't understand his words, the meaning was clear. He wanted action, not diplomacy. Kale responded firmly, his voice low but commanding. The two aliens exchanged heated glances before Vane finally backed down, though his glowing patterns continued to pulse erratically. When he stormed off, Hyejin turned to Kale with concern. "What did he say?" she asked, pointing after Vane. Kyle hesitated, searching for the right words. "He thinks your kind cannot be trusted. He wants us to leave this place." "And you?" Hyejin pressed gently. "What do you think?" Kyle looked at her, his expression thoughtful. "I think we have no choice but to try. If we fail here, my people will die." His honesty struck a chord with Hyejin. She nodded slowly, determined to help however she could. But deep down, she knew that convincing others, both human and Kalith, wouldn't be easy. As days passed, news of the aliens' presence spread far beyond the small farming village. Television broadcasts showed grainy footage of the Kalith, accompanied by dramatic headlines about potential threats to national security. Politicians called for immediate intervention, urging military forces to contain the situation. Anti-alien protests erupted in cities across South Korea, fueled by fears of invasion and loss of control. In response, the government deployed troops to the area surrounding Mount Jiri. Barricades were erected along roads leading to the forest, and armed soldiers patrolled the perimeter day and night. Helicopters buzzed overhead, their rotors slicing through the quiet mountain air. For the villagers, accustomed to a peaceful life away from urban chaos, the sudden influx of military personnel felt like an invasion itself. Jinho, ever protective of his community, grew increasingly frustrated. "They're treating us like prisoners in our own home," he muttered one evening as he and Hyejin sat together outside their house. The distant hum of helicopters served as a constant reminder of the growing tension. "They're scared," Hyejin replied softly. "Just like everyone else. They don't know what to do." "But locking us out won't solve anything," Jinho argued. "If they keep pushing, it'll only make things worse." Hyejin sighed, knowing he was right. Yet she also understood the pressure facing the authorities. With so much uncertainty, it was easier to prepare for conflict than to gamble on cooperation. Still, she refused to give up hope. Each day, she returned to the crash site, continuing her work with Kale and sharing meals with the more open-minded members of his group. Slowly, bonds began to form, not just between her and Kale, but between other villagers, and the Kaleth as well. One such villager was Min-Su, an elderly farmer known for his wisdom and storytelling. Min-Su had initially been skeptical of the aliens, dismissing them as dangerous outsiders. But after witnessing Hyejin's efforts and seeing how some of the Kaleth helped repair damage caused by their crash, he changed his mind. One evening, he invited Kale and Rin, a female Kaleth advisor, to share a meal at his home. The gathering was awkward at first, with both sides unsure of how to behave. Min-Su broke the ice by recounting tales of Korea's history, describing how his ancestors had overcome wars, invasions, and hardships. Kale listened intently, nodding occasionally as Hyejin translated. When Min-Su finished, Kale spoke, sharing stories of his own people's struggles, their rise to greatness, followed by their fall into despair. "I see now why you fight so hard to survive," Min-Su said, his voice warm with admiration. "You are not so different from us." Kale smiled faintly, his glowing patterns dimming in gratitude. "Perhaps that is why we must find a way to live together." Moments like these gave Hyejin hope, but they were rare compared to the challenges she faced daily. Misunderstandings continued to plague interactions between humans and Kaleth. In one instance, a group of soldiers mistook a harmless Kaleth device for a weapon and opened fire. Though no one was injured, the incident reignited fears and reinforced calls for stricter measures. Vane seized on these moments of tension, using them to rally support among his fellow Kaleth. "These Deathworlders cannot be trusted," he declared during a heated argument with Kyle. "They will turn on us the moment it suits them. We should take what we need and leave." Kale countered firmly, reminding Vane of their mission and the dire consequences of failure. "We came here seeking salvation, not conquest. If we act like invaders, we doom ourselves. Is that what you want?" Vane's glowing patterns flared, angrily, but he didn't respond. Instead, he stalked away, his frustration evident. Kyle watched him go, knowing that Vane's anger was rooted in fear, a fear shared by many on both sides. Despite the obstacles, small acts of kindness began to chip away at the barriers separating humans and Kaleth. Villagers offered food and supplies to the stranded aliens, recognizing their plight. In return, the Kaleth shared knowledge and technology, teaching the locals how to purify water more efficiently and heal wounds faster. These exchanges, though modest, laid the foundation for mutual respect. Jinho played a key role in fostering these connections. A skilled hunter and outdoorsman, he often guided Kale and his companions through the dense forests surrounding Mount Jiri. During one such outing, they encountered a venomous snake coiled near a stream. Before anyone could react, Jinho swiftly grabbed a nearby stick and pinned the creature down, allowing the others to move safely past. Later that evening, as they rested by a campfire, Kale examined the slight swelling on Jinho's hand where the snake had grazed him. Without hesitation, he retrieved a small vial from his belt and applied its contents to the wound. Within minutes, the swelling subsided, leaving Jinho amazed. "This is incredible," he said, flexing his fingers experimentally. "How does it work?" Kale explained the science behind the medicine, though much of it was lost in translation. What mattered most was the gesture itself, a demonstration of goodwill and shared purpose. As the days turned into weeks, the fragile alliance between humans and Kaleth grew stronger. Yet the shadow of external forces loomed large. Governments demanded answers, protesters called for action, and Vane's faction grew bolder in their opposition to peace. The question remained: could trust truly take root in such uncertain soil? For now, Yijin, Jinho, and Kale held on to hope, believing that even the smallest seeds of understanding could blossom into something greater. But they also knew that time was running out, for both their peoples and the fragile connection they had forged. The days grew colder as winter approached Mount Jiri, its icy winds weaving through the forests and valleys. For the villagers and the Kaleth alike, the changing season brought new challenges. Supplies dwindled, tensions simmered, and the fragile bond between humans and aliens faced its toughest test yet. Yet amidst the hardships, moments of connection continued to emerge, small sparks of warmth in an increasingly hostile world. Jinho and Hyejin worked tirelessly to maintain the fragile peace. Each morning, they walked to the crash site, carrying food, blankets, and tools to share with the Kaleth. In return, the aliens offered their knowledge, teaching the villagers how to use simple but advanced techniques to improve their daily lives. Hyejin marveled at the efficiency of Kaleth medicine, which could heal wounds faster than any human remedy. Jinho, meanwhile, found himself learning how to craft tools from materials scavenged from the forest, guided by Tim, the young engineer, who had been part of the scout team. Kale remained a steady presence, his calm demeanor helping to ease fears on both sides. He often joined Jinho and Hyejin during these exchanges, acting as a bridge between the two groups. His glowing patterns brightened whenever he spoke of his hope for coexistence, though his eyes betrayed a deeper worry. Vane's influence among the Kaleth was growing, and Kale knew it was only a matter of time before the warrior's anger boiled over into action. One evening, after a long day of work, Jinho invited Kale to join him and Hyejin for dinner at their modest home. The meal was simple, steamed rice, pickled vegetables, and grilled fish, but Kale accepted gratefully, eager to learn more about human traditions. As they ate together, Hyejin explained the significance of sharing meals in Korean culture. "In our family," she said, passing a bowl of soup to Kyle, "eating together means trust. It shows that we care for each other." Kyle nodded thoughtfully, tasting the soup carefully. "This is good," he said slowly, searching for the right word. "Warm." Hyejin smiled. "Yes, warm, like friendship." For a moment, the three of them sat in silence, enjoying the quiet comfort of shared company. Outside, the wind howled against the windows, but inside, the atmosphere was peaceful. Jinho watched Kale closely, noting the weariness etched into his glowing patterns. Though the alien leader tried to hide it, the weight of responsibility was taking its toll. "You look tired," Jinho said finally, breaking the silence. "Is everything okay?" Kale hesitated, then sighed. Vane grows restless. He believes, "We should take what we need by force. Many of my people agree with him. They see your kind as a threat." "And you don't?" Hyejin asked gently. Kale shook his head. "I see fear. Fear can make anyone dangerous, but it doesn't mean they are our enemy. Your people have suffered too. I think we can help each other." His words hung in the air, a reminder of the fragile balance holding their alliance together. Jinho exchanged a glance with Hyejin, both of them aware of the risks involved in trusting Kale's vision. Yet something about his sincerity made them want to believe. As the days passed, the villagers began to notice subtle changes in the Kaleth. Some of them started mimicking human behaviors, adopting gestures like bowing or nodding to show respect. Others tried speaking broken Korean phrases, their efforts met with laughter and encouragement. Even Rin, the reserved advisor, surprised everyone by joining a group of women as they prepared kimchi for the winter. Her glowing patterns flickered with amusement as she struggled to wrap the spicy cabbage mixture correctly, earning playful teasing from the villagers. These small acts of cooperation inspired others to follow suit. Min Su, the elderly farmer, taught Kale and his companions how to weave baskets from reeds harvested near the river. In return, the Kaleth showed him how to purify water using energy crystals salvaged from their ship. Together, they created a system that provided clean drinking water for the entire village, a feat that would have taken months without their combined efforts. But not everyone embraced this newfound harmony. Anti-alien sentiment continued to grow outside the village, fueled by sensational media coverage and political rhetoric. Protesters gathered in nearby towns, demanding that the government remove the Caliph by any means necessary. Soldiers stationed around Mount Jiri grew more aggressive, conducting frequent patrols and setting up checkpoints to restrict movement. The once open roads leading to the forest were now blocked by barbed wire and armed guards. One afternoon, Jin-Ho and Hye-Jin encountered a group of soldiers while returning from the crash site. The leader, a stern-faced officer named Captain Choi, stepped forward, blocking their path. "You're not allowed here," he said firmly, his voice cold. "This area is under military control." "We live here," Jin-Ho replied, his tone equally firm. "These are our lands." Captain Choi narrowed his eyes. "Not anymore. Orders come from above. You'll have to leave." Hye-Jin stepped forward, clutching her notebook filled with translations. "Please, listen. We're trying to communicate with them. If you push too hard, it will only make things worse." The captain glanced at the notebook skeptically. "Communication? Is that what you call it? To me, it looks like fraternizing with the enemy." "They're not the enemy," Hye-Jin insisted, her voice rising. "They're just lost. Like us." Captain Choi didn't respond. Instead, he gestured for his men to escort Jin-Ho and Hye-Jin away. As they left, Hye-Jin turned back, catching sight of Kale watching from a distance. His glowing patterns dimmed, a sign of concern. That night, tensions reached a breaking point. A group of protesters, emboldened by inflammatory speeches from local leaders, marched toward the crash site, armed with torches and makeshift weapons. Their chants echoed through the forest, loud enough to wake the entire village. "Get out!" they shouted. "Leave our land!" The Caliph, alerted by the noise, emerged cautiously from their ship. Vane stood at the front, his weapon drawn and his glowing patterns blazing with anger. Behind him, Kale tried to calm the situation, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. "Stop!" he called out, his voice amplified by a device strapped to his belt. "We mean no harm!" The crowd ignored him, advancing steadily. Rocks flew through the air, striking the aliens and forcing them to retreat. Panic spread among the Caliph, some of them activating their weapons defensively. Sparks flew as energy beams clashed with metal tools, creating a chaotic scene. Jin-Ho and Hye-Jin arrived just in time to witness the chaos. Without hesitation, Jin-Ho grabbed a megaphone from a nearby soldier and stepped forward, positioning himself between the two groups. "Enough!" he shouted, his voice cutting through the din. "This isn't helping anyone! Stop fighting!" The protesters hesitated, unsure of what to do. Hye-Jin rushed to Kale's side, speaking quickly in broken Caliph phrases. "Please, lower your weapons. Trust me." Kale nodded reluctantly, signaling for his people to stand down. Slowly, the tension eased, though the air remained thick with hostility. Captain Choi and his men moved in, forming a barrier between the two sides. "This ends now," the captain declared, his voice firm. "Both of you, back off." Reluctantly, the protesters dispersed, muttering curses under their breath. The Caliph retreated to their ship, their glowing patterns dimming in exhaustion. Jin-Ho and Hye-Jin stayed behind, watching silently as the forest returned to an uneasy calm. Later that night, Kale sought out Jin-Ho and Hye-Jin at their home. His expression was grave, his glowing patterns flickering faintly. "I owe you my thanks," he said quietly. "You saved us tonight." Jin-Ho shook his head. "We didn't do enough. Things are getting worse, not better." Kale sighed. "I know. But maybe there's still a chance. If we can show your people, and mine, that we're stronger together, perhaps they'll listen." Hye-Jin nodded, determination shining in her eyes. "Then let's keep trying, no matter how hard it gets." For a moment, the three of them stood in silence, united by a shared belief in the possibility of peace. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it the promise of change, or the threat of conflict. Only time would tell which path lay ahead. The uneasy calm that followed the protest was short-lived. While the immediate threat of violence had subsided, the underlying tensions simmered like a storm waiting to break. The villagers near Mount Jiri lived under constant watch, their movements restricted by soldiers who patrolled the area relentlessly. The Caliph, confined to their crash site, grew increasingly restless. Supplies dwindled, patience wore thin, and the fragile trust Jin Ho and Hye Jin had worked so hard to build began to crack. Kyle felt the weight of leadership pressing down on him more heavily than ever before. Each day brought new challenges, whispers of rebellion among his own people, harsh restrictions imposed by human authorities, and the ever-present shadow of Vane's growing influence. The warrior's glowing patterns flared brighter with each passing hour, a visual reminder of his anger and frustration. He no longer tried to hide his disdain for humanity, openly questioning Kale's decisions during meetings with other Caliph. "They see us as weak," Vane argued one evening, his voice sharp and cutting. "Every moment we waste trying to reason with these Deathworlders is another moment closer to extinction." Kale clenched his fists, struggling to keep his temper in check. "And what would you have us do, Vane? Attack them? Destroy everything they've built here? That's not survival, it's madness." Vane smirked, his expression cold and calculating. "If it means securing our future, then yes. Madness is better than failure." Their argument ended abruptly when Rin intervened, her calm voice cutting through the tension. "This isn't helping anyone. We need a plan, not pointless bickering." Kale nodded gratefully, though he knew Vane wouldn't back down easily. The warrior stormed off, leaving behind an oppressive silence. Kale turned to Rin, his glowing patterns dimming slightly as exhaustion took hold. "What do we do now?" he asked quietly. "How do we convince both sides to trust us?" Rin hesitated, her eyes distant as she considered the question. Maybe we don't try to convince everyone at once. Start small. Focus on those who are willing to listen." Meanwhile, Hye Jin and Jin Ho faced their own struggles. Government officials arrived in the village, demanding answers and pressuring the siblings to sever ties with the Caliph. They were questioned repeatedly about their interactions with the aliens, accused of jeopardizing national security. Hye Jin defended their actions passionately, arguing that cooperation was the only way forward. "These beings aren't invaders," she insisted during one particularly heated meeting. "They're refugees, just like anyone fleeing war or disaster. If we turn our backs on them, we lose part of ourselves." Her words fell on deaf ears. The officials dismissed her arguments, warning her that continued defiance would result in consequences. When they left, Jin Ho placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You did your best," he said softly. "But we can't fight this alone." Hye Jin nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I know, but I'm scared, Jin Ho. What if they take away everything we've worked for?" Jin Ho didn't answer immediately. Instead, he gazed out the window at the forest beyond, where the Caliph ship lay hidden. The thought of losing the bond they'd formed weighed heavily on him, but deep down, he refused to give up hope. "We'll find a way," he said finally. "Together." Days later, a breakthrough came unexpectedly. While exploring the forest, Jin Ho stumbled upon something unusual, a strange device half buried in the soil. It was unlike anything he'd seen before, its surface smooth and metallic, etched with intricate patterns that glowed faintly. Curious, he picked it up and carried it back to the village, showing it to Hye Jin and Kale. Kale's eyes widened in recognition. This belongs to Vane." Hye Jin frowned. "What does it do?" Kyle hesitated, examining the object carefully. "It's a communication relay used to send messages over long distances." Realization dawned on Hye Jin. "Could he be contacting someone? Maybe the rest of your fleet?" Kyle nodded grimly. "If he is, it could mean trouble." Determined to uncover the truth, Jin Ho and Hye Jin accompanied Kale back to the crash site. Along the way, they noticed subtle signs of activity, fresh footprints in the dirt, broken branches, and faint traces of energy residue lingering in the air. When they reached the ship, they found Vane standing near a makeshift transmitter, his glowing patterns blazing with intensity. "What are you doing?" Kale demanded, stepping forward. Vane sneered, unbothered by the interruption. "Securing our future, something you seem incapable of doing." Before Kale could respond, alarms blared from within the ship. One of the crew members rushed out, panic evident in their glowing patterns. "Commander, incoming signal, from orbit!" Kyle froze. "Orbit? Are there other ships nearby?" The crew member nodded. "Yes, multiple vessels. They're scanning." "The planet!" Vane smirked triumphantly. "Our reinforcements have arrived, and they won't hesitate to burn this mudball to ash if it stands in our way." Horrified, Hyojin turned to Kale. "You have to stop them. If they attack, it'll destroy everything." Kale looked torn, his glowing patterns flickering erratically. Finally, he squared his shoulders, determination replacing doubt. "We'll evacuate the villagers first. Then we deal with Vane." News of the approaching fleet spread quickly, sending shockwaves through the community. Soldiers scrambled to fortify their positions, while villagers packed whatever belongings they could carry. Jinho and Hee-Jin worked tirelessly to organize the evacuation, ensuring everyone reached safety. Despite the chaos, they remained resolute, refusing to abandon the Kaleth entirely. As the first scout ships descended into Earth's atmosphere, Kale confronted Vane one final time. The warrior stood defiantly, surrounded by loyal followers armed with advanced weapons. "It doesn't have to be this way," Kale pleaded. "We can still find common ground." Vane laughed bitterly. "Common ground? With these primitives? You're delusional, Kyle. This world will be ours, or nothing will remain." With no other options left, Kale made a difficult decision. Turning to Hyejin and Jinho, he spoke urgently. "Take my people to safety. Hide them until this is over. I'll handle Vane." Hyejin shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "No, let us help you." Kale smiled faintly, his glowing patterns brightening with gratitude. "You already have. Trust me, you've given us more than you know." Reluctantly, Jinho and Hyejin led the remaining Kaleth away, disappearing into the dense forest. Behind them, Kale faced Vane, his expression steely and resolute. As the two warriors prepared for a final showdown, the fate of both species hung precariously in the balance. Above them, the skies darkened as alien ships loomed closer, their shadows stretching across the land like harbingers of